Hello everyone, Mr. Lindsay here with a clay project. So for this project we're going to create a little clay fish, and instead of painting our clay, which I've done in the past with projects, we're going to use these little sequins to put them into our clay project, and that'll make it look like the scales on the fish because they're really glittery like that. That'll work perfect for this, okay? I chose that because painting right now is a little tricky. At school, I'm still going room to room for art projects instead of having kids in the art room. And at home, I'm not sure who has the paint, so I thought we could use these. So I have a little care package for you that you can pick up, and it's at school if you already got it, which I'm sure a lot of you have. It will have a Ziploc bag with some of these sequins. Okay, there'll be a googly eye or two like that, and then your clay. That's really all you need to make this project. Just a little bit about clay, just in case you didn't know. Clay has been used for thousands of years by humans to make all sorts of things, to make sculptures for decorations, to make pottery and things that can be used, like to carry water or food around. Most clays have to be heated to get really, really durable and sturdy and hard. You heat the clay once it's dry to make it real durable. Now the clay we're using is just air dry clay, so basically when you're done you just let it dry and it's pretty durable stuff. But just so you know, the clay that typically is used for pottery and things that you're going to use, like cups and bowls and things like that, that kind of clay usually has to be heated to make it really durable. Okay, so it's a little bit different kind of clay, but it works exactly the same as what we're using here. Okay, so this is my little chunk of clay. So to make this clay fish, what I'm going to start with is taking my lump of clay and kind of rolling it up into a ball. I always start with a ball of clay. I think it's easier. You can roll it around on a scrap of paper like this. That way it doesn't stick to the table. Some tools you might need. I usually use an old pencil, make sure it's sharp, or a toothpick. Sometimes I use it to carve things into my clay. And then maybe a little bit of water comes in handy when you're working with clay, so I have a little bowl of water there. To start, I'm going to take that ball of clay now and break a chunk off, maybe about that big, so not quite in half. And then I'm going to roll this piece back, maybe a little bit more, roll this back up into a ball, just to show you the difference. So I have two pieces of clay like that. This is an extra piece I'll use for some details, and this is the main shape. So I'm going to take this ball of clay now and flatten it and make it into a flat circle, basically. So I just press it with the palm of my hand and then flip it and turn it once in a while, kind of like making cookies with cookie dough if you've ever done that. So I'm going to keep pressing this. All right, until I have a pretty good sized circle. Let me show you how thick my clay is right now. It's about that thick. About as thick as a pencil is a pretty good thickness for your clay. Could be a little thicker than that, but you don't want it to get too thin because it'll be really fragile and fall apart later. We don't want them to break. So that's a pretty good thickness. There's my main part of my fish here. That's going to be like the body. Now this extra piece is going to be for fins, tail, things like that. So I'm going to take a little chunk of this and roll it up into a little ball, and then try to form that into some sort of like a fin that can be up here on top. So I'm going to try to make it into kind of like a triangle just by pressing and squeezing the clay. When I think it's going to work, I'm going to line it up. I need the bottom to be flat so it'll actually stick onto here. I'm just going to line it up and say, okay, that should work. Maybe I'll put it a little further up here so it's closer to the front. And I'm just going to set it there for now. I'm not going to actually stick it on yet. I'm just kind of setting it right there. Now I'm also going to make a tail. So let's get another piece here. Probably a little bit bigger than that one. Roll it up into a ball, and then I'm going to flatten that quite a bit. So it's another circle. Now obviously I don't want my tail to be a circle. I mean I could, but I don't want it quite a circle. So what I'm going to do is tap this side flat a little bit. Okay, that way it can stick onto there a little bit better. And then for the actual tail, maybe I'll just use my fingers and put a little indent there. Okay, that looks a little bit more like a tail for a fish. Maybe something like that. So that's going to be about there. Still have a little bit of clay left. I'm going to take a really little piece and roll up a little ball. I'll flatten that. And I'm going to set it right about here where I'd want an eye to be maybe. Okay, I'm just going to set it right there for now. And then maybe there's one more fin right here on the side. So I'm going to take this extra piece, okay, flatten it a little bit. Maybe this gets placed on there, maybe about where I want that to be on the side. I'm going to move the eye up a little bit more and move that to there. Okay, now I'm ready to attach these pieces. Right now I just kind of set them there. To get them to stick, usually just a tiny bit of water helps. So I'm going to take my bowl of water, put a little tiny bit on my finger, and get my clay wet right there. And then press and kind of wiggle that around a little bit, make sure it's not sliding around, and it is stuck. Okay, same here. Little water on my clay here. Put that where I want it. Press it just a little bit to make sure it sticks. I can wiggle it around a little just to make sure it doesn't slide. Once I get it stuck on there and it's not sliding around, there we go. Now this one here, I'm going to put a little clay or a little water on the top and then press that into place. Maybe bend the tip just a little bit. Press it down. Make sure it's sticking. Sometimes I'll pull on things just a little bit to make sure they stuck. And then a tiny bit of water here. And then same thing. Press that right into the clay. And it is sticking pretty well. Okay, I'm going to move my water out of the way. Now I'm just going to kind of blend that in just a little bit. And blend that a little bit. It should stick pretty well. There we go. There's a nice shape for my fish. Now this is where I take that googly eye that I gave you. I'm going to put one of those right here for my eye. There we go. Press it in really good so it sticks in there. I can use this dull pencil. If I want a little smile on here, I can draw a curved line for a mouth. Not too deep, just kind of scratching a little line in there. Maybe I want a couple lines on this. Here. There we go. Maybe there's a couple lines on this one. Okay, I could even put a couple lines on the tail if I want. Kind of carve those in. Now this is where I use a sequins instead of actually painting or adding color to these like I normally would. I'm going to use these sequins and put them in for color. I can just make it rainbow color if I want. So when I put these in, I'm not going to stick them on flat. I'm going to put them in at an angle so the tip is actually sticking into the clay. Let's see if I can move that closer so you can see it better. So I'm going to put it in on slight angle so this end is just sticking into my clay like that. Okay, and then I can kind of bend it down a little bit so it's not laying flat. It's actually like the whole front end or tip of this sequin is stuck in my clay. There we go, and another one. And I just keep putting these in until my fish looks the way I want it. So I'm going to press that one in about here. I put them in about halfway. So I stuck the tip in about halfway at a little bit of an angle. Okay, so I don't stick them in straight in like that. I tip them back a little bit so they're angled in. There we go. It might be a little hard to see on the camera. I'm doing my best to show you that. Maybe I can, let me turn this so you can see a different angle. You see how those are in there? Kind of at a little bit of an angle. Okay, and then I just keep going with my sequins until I think I'm done. So I can stop whenever I want. I'm just going to make my fish the way I want it. I'm just going to go all the way around here. If I have room, I could do a couple rows. Now everyone's going to be a little bit different. If you have a little more room, you might do 2 rows of scales. Just depends on how much room you have on your fish once you get going. They're not all going to be exactly the same size. Okay, I'm going to put a couple on the tail. So my tail's not empty. There we go, that's a good start. So I can keep going and add these sequins until I think I am done. And I have enough scales on my fish. I imagine these are the scales because they actually remind me of scales a lot. I have some more room here. Maybe I'll do one more row on the bottom. There's enough room to fill it in a little bit more. But you should have plenty of these sequins in your bag to do this until you're out of room. Okay. And that is our fish. If I want, I could put a couple on the top here. I haven't done that on any of mine. Maybe I put a couple on the top edge. Just for a different look. There we go. I'm going to stop right there, but you get the idea, and you can keep decorating your fish with the sequins until you think it looks like it's ready. These should hold pretty well once the clay dries. I tested mine out, the one that I made originally, and I had to pull really hard to pull them out. You don't want to pull them out, but I just tested to see how they'd hold. And they actually stayed pretty well. That eye stayed really well, and there you go. Now when I'm all done, if I really need to, I can take my water and my finger and I can actually smooth things out a little bit, but my fish is pretty smooth. Sometimes I will take a tiny bit of water and smooth out my clay a little bit. But there is your clay fish.